Good morning, friends. I really am so excited to be here with you. I'm Ray McKinnon, and I and my wife Kelly live here in Charlotte with our three boys, our dog and our cat. And we're so grateful to be here. As I was here in person, listening to this incredible music and watching Ricky, a person who I always forget worships here, I was reminded that y'all might not know how good you have it here. And this isn't really in my notes until I was here. I just need y'all to pause for a minute. Folks who have been a part of Watershed for a while, and you need to know that you have an incredible space. A space that is safe for people who love in every way. A space for people who question in every way. And that is not nothing. It is not insignificant. I've been a minister now for a very long time. I was ordained in 2005. And in that time, I have had this almost like a crisis of faith, not almost, a certain crisis of faith. In that time, my understanding of God, my understanding of what it means to show up and to be a representative of Christ has changed so much. And when I first started down that journey of saying, God, who are you and how have you called me to show up and live in the space? One of the areas where I just had so many questions was around human sexuality. And whether I could be a part of a faith that seemed to push out so many people because of something that I had grown to know as immutable, something that couldn't change, and it might have come natural now to y'all. Y'all might feel like it's something that every place has, but y'all, every time I step in this place, I'm reminded that God is up to something, and God is using this community to shift the narrative of what it means to be a follower of Christ, of what it means to show up fully. So before I get into anything, I need y'all to know that not only are you impacting people here in Charlotte, you're impacting people all over, not the least of whom being me. So thank you for that. I'm honored every time I get to share with this community because I feel like y'all get it on so many levels. We're coming up on a year. We're coming up on a year when we have been kind of on punishment, locked inside, can't go nowhere, friends can't come over. I told y'all we have kids. We have 4 kids, but 3 of them who live at the house. And our oldest kid at home always wanted to have kids come in the house, and we were cool with that up until the pandemic. And it's like he can't understand why his friends can't come into our house. And I can't understand it either. Because at the end of the day, all of us, every person is built for touch. We are built to love. We are built to be with people physically in person. And we're all making the adjustments. We're going virtual. We're doing all the things. But nothing can substitute for physical touch. What does love look like in this time of coronavirus? What does showing up look like in this time of coronavirus? Now, this is a series y'all have been in, and I want to go in a little, maybe not a different perspective, but I want to give a different spin on things. Brother Ricky made mention of, is there a balm in Gilead? One of my favorite scriptures, he was right, it is found in Jeremiah. I want to read this from the Message version because I feel like there is something important here that speaks to where we all are. I was sharing with Scott earlier, if I'm being honest, this has been probably 2 of the roughest weeks emotionally for me, and it doesn't make any sense. I started a new job that I love so much. My family is relatively well. My kids are relatively well. But emotionally, I don't feel okay. And I'm like, what is that all about? I've tried to figure out what is that all about. And all I can think about is that we've been carrying for a year in our bodies anxiety. We've been carrying for so long within us this ability, this need to just get by without acknowledging it. We've started to accept as normal stuff that shouldn't be normal, like the fact that 460,000 people have died because of the coronavirus. 462,000 people are dead. In North Carolina, that number is almost at 10,000 people. And a good number of those have come from Charlotte. They're gone, they're dead. And we don't talk about that enough. And what is that doing to us? Jeremiah 8 says, I drown in grief. I'm heartsick. Oh, listen, please listen. It's the cry of my dear people reverberating through the country. And it says, goes on, for my dear broken people, I'm heartbroken. I weep, seized by grief. Are there no healing ointments in Gilead? Isn't there a doctor in the house? So why can't something be done to heal and save my dear, dear people? For many of us, this time of coronavirus sounds exactly like that. We are heartsick. We are broken. If we're honest, this has not been a great time. But maybe we feel guilty because we know we have it better than some other people. That's how I am. I know that I really don't have space to complain because I have at home my wife and my sons. I have the most incredible wife in the world. And I'm not just saying that because I know she's watching. Kelly and I work. Kelly is my wife. We work because we're so different. She was a couple Sundays ago watching, I guess when Scott was speaking, or Taryn. I can't remember who was speaking. But she said, I swear you are just like Taryn. And I am just like Scott. And it's always like that in our friendships. Emotionally and all the stuff, I'm always more akin to, like, I'm the empath. I feel everything. I can't see somebody in anguish and not feel that and carry that in me. And she's like, yeah, I do too, but I just need to get to the solution. We don't need to talk for hours and hours and hours about the problem. What are we going to do next, Ray McKinnon? And I say, talking about the problem is part of fixing it. That's what I say. Let's talk about it. Even if we don't come to a solution, let's talk about it, right, Taryn? That's how we feel. We got to get that out. And here's the reality, friends. So many of us in our relationships right now in COVID, whether we're talking about romantic relationships, familial relationships, our friendships, we've got to come to the place where we can be honest about where we are. Coronavirus has done what every problem does when pressed. It has brought to the surface all the things that were lying underneath the surface. And it has exposed them for what they are. Take any metric you want to choose. If you want to talk about the disparities in the healthcare industry, coronavirus has, under pressure, shown us that just as before coronavirus, black and brown folks are the ones who are going to get the most sick and the ones who will die most from coronavirus. Take whatever metric you want. When we look at the rate of divorce, it is increasing internationally, and some say it will do the same thing here in the United States because under pressure, the problems that were underneath there come out. There was a Washington Post article. I want to read this. The man says, my marriage had pre-existing conditions and COVID killed it. I don't care what was going on before your marriage, before coronavirus in your marriage or in your friendship or in any of your relationships. Coronavirus has put the squeeze on. Coronavirus has exposed the things. You know, One thing we saw last year around the height of coronavirus was the death of George Floyd. Coronavirus didn't cause any of the cries for justice for black and brown bodies, but it exposed in a way that somehow put a spotlight, maybe because we were all home, maybe because we were all just kind of feeling this, we had all this energy we had to do something with, but something exploded. Coronavirus was never the problem. Coronavirus was never the cause of those things. What is it in your life, beloved? What has been exposed during this time? I wonder if we can be honest about where we really are. Before coronavirus, we could maybe start put some Band-Aids on things when we talk about the health disparities. Or in your romantic relationships with your partner, with your spouse, maybe you could just overlook all the things that you've overlooked, but something changes, friends, when you're spending basically 24/7 in a house with somebody. Under pressure, all of the fissures will come out. Something else was interesting that I found about where there have been increases in the divorce rate in America. The majority happen from people who were married 9 months or fewer. And that tells me a couple things. There is something that happens when you have to weather a storm together. It puts everything under pressure again. Do I trust this person enough to really get through this tragedy together? And this has been a protracted thing. It has gone on. And it is exposing where there are lacks of trust. It is exposing where we have had conflict unresolved. And listen, before coronavirus, you could kind of get through it, right? You could get through it because, you went to work outside of the house about 8 hours a day or more. You stayed gone as long as you needed to, so you didn't have to confront the problem. But right now, the problem is in front of you. And you have to be honest. I have to be honest. We have to be honest that there are problems, even for those of us who are people of faith. There are problems. Sometimes those problems seem insurmountable, but sometimes those problems are insurmountable. And if we don't confront those things, if we don't seek the help that we need from trusted friends, first, if we're not honest with ourselves, the problems will simply exacerbate to the point where the unhealthy nature of the relationship becomes unbearable. And maybe coronavirus, maybe love for you in the time of coronavirus means becoming honest with first yourself and then the other person. Maybe the other person is a romantic partner. Maybe the other person is a friend who you have had consistent disagreements with, philosophically and politically. Maybe there is time for us to say, for me right now, love is being honest with you and saying, I really intrinsically do love you and I see your worth, I see who you are, but love for me right now is creating distance. Creating distance, frankly, for me, for my health, for my sanity. And friends, if you needed permission this morning to guard your sanity and your health, I give it to you. I grant thee permission to be honest with you and to guard yourself, to guard your worth. Because you're playing the game, getting through, shrinking back, not standing up for the things that you believe are not helping you. They're not helping the person. Love in coronavirus, love right now means being honest. It means being real. The message It's a paraphrased version of Scripture that I like to read sometimes, and then sometimes I'm a little snobby and I don't, but I do feel like today there is a version of 1 Corinthians 13 that I really think makes sense here in the message. It says, if I give everything I own to the poor and even go to the stake to be burned as a martyr, but I don't love, I've gotten nowhere. Love doesn't strut. It doesn't have a swelled head. It doesn't force itself on others. It isn't always me first. Doesn't fly off the handle. It doesn't keep score of the sins of others. It doesn't revel when others grovel. Love takes pleasure in the flowering of truth. It puts up with everything. Love trusts God. And it always looks for the best, never looks back. Always looks for the best, never looks back. Maybe that part is what has kept you and me and us in relationships that frankly are toxic and not working because we think love means sticking. Sometimes love means being realistic and saying, I've got to let this go. Maybe it's in a relationship with a family member. Maybe it's your sibling, or frankly, your parent who's just toxic, who you know isn't doing what needs to be done. I give you permission to know that maybe right now love means being honest with that relationship, having the conversation, and creating the distance that you need to be. Because sometimes that separation is temporary, and sometimes that separation is permanent. But at the end of the day, love demands us to be honest. Love demands us to take action. Love demands that we see soberly where we are. I don't know where you are. I know where I am. I know that I need to take stock of where I am personally. And being realistic, that being a person of faith, being a minister, being a leader still means I'm human, and it still means I need to be honest with my emotional state. And then to see that it's okay to share that. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to need other people. But it's also okay to show up for yourself. It's also okay to show up authentically. God has called us to love. But if we cannot love ourselves enough, to be honest with ourselves, we cannot love another enough to be honest with them. I don't know where you are, friends. I don't know what you need. But I think if you were to take some time to slow down, to be with yourself, I think you know. I think you know what is needed. And I think you know that we are here for you. I think I can speak with authority that your family here at Watershed wants to walk with you. Your community wants to walk with you, because at the end of the day, we cannot do this alone. If I have learned anything in this time of coronavirus, it is how much I desperately need you and how much you desperately need me. I don't need you to always agree with me. I don't need you to always to think the way I think. I certainly don't need that. But I need you to show up as you are. Because when you show up as you are, it gives me permission to show up as I am. When you show up and you are vulnerable, it gives other folks permission to be vulnerable. And yes, I know I say that word weirdly because my friends tell me all the time, but it's the right way in my head. I don't know any other way to say it. Take that, Kelly. Take that, Nathan. I say vulnerable weird. But I need you to tell me that. But I think when I show up honestly, love myself authentically, it gives you permission to do the same thing. What do you need this week? What will you do this week to show up authentically, honestly, being real about where you are, being real about who you are, and reaching out for the help you need, because we are all in this together. And what the world needs, in fact, is love. Are people who love themselves authentically and people who love others authentically. What the world really needs is you. You. To be real and honest and authentic and broken and fixed. To be incomplete and complete. To be the paradox that we are as humans. Coronavirus has shown us we are fragile. Coronavirus has shown us we are, each of us, going to one day die. We have lost nearly 500,000 people in a year. We will all succumb to something. Why don't you live while you're alive? Authentically, love yourself in the middle of coronavirus. But love sometimes means walking away from what we've always thought and what we always thought we knew. But it always means showing up authentically. May God bless you on your journey this week. May you authentically become who you are called to become. May you authentically live into your purpose, because that, beloved, that is what the world is waiting for. Peace be with you. Amen.